Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks. Graham Mertz. Turns out he's another Joe Burrow. We're going to talk all about that. Yeah, one of Florida's wide receivers is real proud of Graham Mertz, and he thinks he's going to be the next Joe Burrow. And this whole thing's kind of gone viral, and we're going to get into that. Now, there's been a lot of talk, of course, that Florida needs to go get another quarterback because of the spring game and Graham Mertz, his history at Wisconsin, etc. But it turns out, looks like Florida's pretty high on him. Now, there is a player out there, goes by the name of Casey Thompson. He's in the transfer portal, but it looks like he's probably going to go to Auburn. He's already visited Auburn, and I believe one of the Auburn quarterbacks is on his way out, which is TJ Finley, I believe is his name. So it doesn't sound like they're probably going to go after this guy. He's very similar to Graham Mertz as far as his numbers, etc. So even though Billy Napier's talked about getting another scholarship quarterback, it sounds like they're probably going to go with Graham Mertz. And this is all blowing up based on a wide receiver who compared Graham Mertz to Joe Burrow. And this writer's calling it a ludicrous take about Florida QB Graham Mertz. Said Mertz left the Wisconsin Badgers after several disappointing and frustrating seasons. The team needed a reset after hiring Luke Fickell, and the same was true for the former star quarterback. And he was a high-end quarterback coming out of high school. And he actually was the most hyped QB recruit in history. He was a top 50 player, but he threw 38 touchdowns and 26 interceptions at his time at Wisconsin. And let's get into this video that talks about that.
I'm gonna keep it 100. Like, he an awesome quarterback. He actually loved the game. Like, and he got good energy. A quarterback with good energy, bro, they never gonna go wrong because good energy gonna bring good energy on the field. Like, whatever you do off the field, you gonna get blessed on the field. So I feel like we gonna have awesome chemistry. Everybody gonna be good. I feel like he can wake everybody up because everybody about hype nowadays. Everybody about names, and I feel like he gonna come in like how Joe Burrow's transferred from another school. I feel like he another Joe Burrow because he actually loved the game. And he more like detailed and like mentally part of the game. I feel like he gonna have an awesome year for sure. Y'all gonna see though.
And the guy says, well, it's nice to see that Andy Jean is excited about his new teammate. Let's go ahead and tap the brakes on any comparison to Joe Burrow. And let's take a look at Graham Mertz. It looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback for Florida unless something significant changes. Now, understand he was at Wisconsin for 4 years. And, of course, he didn't play the first year. But over those 4 years, he had 460 completions out of 773 attempts, which is under 60%. He threw 38 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. So that's not a very strong number. But let's compare him to Joe Burrow and see if there is some trajectory that would make sense to this comparison. All right, here you can see that Burrow was at Ohio State for 3 years. I guess he redshirted his first year, and he played very little at Ohio State. There's really nothing to look at. He only threw the ball 39 times in that 3 years. So, he was really under the radar as much as you could possibly be. Then he came to LSU, and he had a pretty decent first year, but not great. He was actually under 60%. But look at the touchdown to interception ratio. 16 TDs, 5 interceptions. So that number is really strong. That's over 75% right there. But then his senior year, you got to be kidding me. I mean, these numbers are insane. 76% completion rate, 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's got to be a record. 60 touchdowns. I mean, that's insane. And the guy's a dual threat. He really probably had the best year in the history of college football. I mean, it was incredible. He showed signs of brilliance there his first year at LSU, but nothing that would make you think he's going to throw for 60 touchdowns. He just blew up. So that comparison seems a little bit wacky, but, hey, like I said, he's a wide receiver. He's going to talk good about his quarterback, show some loyalty, and I'm okay with that. I don't think it's a reasonable comparison, but so be it. But here's the thing about Florida. Yeah, they're kind of our nemesis, but they're, 900 miles away. There's another team that opposes Florida and then plays them every year that really has a disdain for them, and it's because they live right next to each other. And that's Hatfield-McCoy stuff. That's Auburn, Alabama. That's Clemson, South Carolina. It's just tough. It's hard for us to really understand what a rivalry is because, Vanderbilt's not very good at all and really probably shouldn't be in the SEC. That would be our only thing that we could even compare to something that's close by in state. Well, Florida State and Florida are in the same state, and they do not like each other. And let's see what this YouTuber has to say about Florida. And this guy has a podcast there on YouTube, and it's called FSU Football, Double Fries, No Slaw.
The Billy Napier experiment at Florida got off to a very rocky start in 2022, and I don't see things getting much better for the Gators and Coach Napier in 2023. Things started out rough last year, and it looks like they're starting to get even worse. We're going to talk about what's happened here recently, how it impacts FSU, and we'll even share a little nugget that
You can tell he's broke up about it. I almost could see a tear coming down. He's so concerned about Florida. I can kind of understand that.
Last week at the NFL draft, the Gators did really, really well. They put 6 guys into the league through the draft. They had several other guys sign with teams after the draft. I believe the count was up near 9, 10, 11 guys that made NFL rosters. One of those obviously being Anthony Richardson, who was a top 5 pick that played quarterback for the Gators last year. The question then was posed on social media, in the media, in a lot of different places. How in the heck did Florida end up with 6 draft picks, 10 plus guys on NFL rosters, and a top 5 quarterback, and somehow manage 7 losses? It's one thing for them to have lost to teams like LSU and Georgia that had similar amounts of talent, but the fact that they lost to a Vanderbilt team with a top 5 quarterback and several NFL draft picks is something that even Vandy fans and the media were picking at and making fun of. There's only really one answer for this. Billy Napier just isn't a very good coach. He mismanaged talent. He struggled to put AR and others in good situations. He made horrible game day decisions that led to awful, awful results on the field. And that's what they're stuck with in Gainesville. They're going to have a roster and a team in 2023 that has significantly less talent, especially at that quarterback position, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And the portal has opened up, and that window has come and gone, but you can now sign guys out of the portal. You can bring in guys as transfers. And multiple media members in Gainesville have attacked Billy Napier for the way he's handling the portal. Jacob Rudner of Gators 247 site, Swamp 247, called out Billy Napier and basically said that they've missed out on a couple of guys because they're upsetting top prospects by asking them to send in film or record themselves working out or doing this, that, and the other. And guys just aren't willing to do that. And I understand that sometimes recruits and sometimes even transfers can be kind of drama-filled, and there are 2 sides to every story, but it sounds like a couple of guys are just saying, no, other top Power 5 programs want me.
I'm almost wondering if he doesn't currently want like a dual threat guy. I think he wants a guy with the big arm that can run his offense, which is kind of odd. You would think he would want a dual threat quarterback right now. I mean, in the SEC, you almost need one. It's rare to see somebody who kind of sits back there in the pocket and does a Tom Brady all day. You know, the world's kind of moving away from that and really moving towards a dual threat dude. I'm kind of surprised he's sticking with Graham Mertz and not trying to find another guy in the portal.
Sell myself to you. I'm going to go where I'm wanted. Jacob Rudner mentioned at least one guy, didn't say his name, that this has happened to, a high-level transfer that Florida wanted, but just didn't really approach the right way. Nick De La Torre of Gators Online says that they're moving way too slow, and they're not evaluating guys until they've already hit the portal. They've got a staff that they've gloated about and an army of hundreds of staffers that they can't seem to get to evaluate guys when they're jumping in the portal or even before that. And so now the media is even kind of turning on Napier and calling him out pretty publicly this week for how he is recruiting. The media knows that there are massive, massive holes in UF's roster and on that team that they need to fill, and they don't have the confidence in Napier to get it done.
Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that a bunch of guys left when Napier came in. He might be kind of a disciplinarian, and that may not have sat well with a lot of the players that were there before. So I could see that, and they're not seeing those spots being filled quite to the level that they would like to see, especially at the quarterback position. Really, if they had a really good quarterback sitting there, a lot of this controversy wouldn't be happening. But the truth is they had a top 5 quarterback and weren't able to win with him. And, you know, I know that Richardson had his downside, but I can tell you what, when he played Tennessee, he looked good. He looked like kind of a nightmare. He actually had over 500 yards combined between throwing and running against us. And, we still won the ball game because Hendon Hooker just played so well and Josh Heupel's offense, et cetera. The defense played okay during that game, but Anthony Richardson's a freak. Man, I'm telling you, when he gets to running, you think you've got him, and all of a sudden you don't. I mean, he's got that magicianship that some of these quarterbacks have where you can't get them down.
Move on to the quarterback situation, talent. And he won them a couple of games by himself. You think about that Utah game specifically, he did some really ridiculous things to keep them in that game and ultimately give them the win. They don't have a good quarterback on the roster this year. They brought in Graham Mertz, who is, by all accounts, and the people that I'm talking with, just an absolute dumpster fire of a quarterback. It really seems like they're going to struggle there at that position. And even though they brought in Graham Mertz, he hasn't separated from Jack Miller, who is, again, just not very good. I think that quarterback position is going to be a huge struggle for the Gators this year.
And by the way, even with them struggling at quarterback, when we go down to Gainesville, it's still going to be an extremely tough game. I can tell you I've been watching the Gators for decades, and when you're playing down at the Swamp, they play their very best against Tennessee. They just do. It brings it out in them. For some reason, I think it's just been that rivalry that's just really been kind of wild back in the 90s, and it's followed us for the last 20 years, and we need to turn that around. We beat them up here in Neyland last year. We need to beat them at the Swamp. Let them come back up to Neyland next year, beat them with Nico, and get our little streak going on.
May even reclassify a high school sophomore in Austin Simmons to the 2023 class. He's a 25 kid right now. It sounds like they might even be looking for a high school sophomore to come in and try and fix some of the issues that they have at quarterback. It's gone on record and
I've covered that quite a bit. They've talked about doing that with the other kid that's a 2024 commit, and now they're talking about a 2025 commit reclassifying. Why? It's not like he's going to come in there and start. He's not going to really help you, so I don't get that. But they're talking about it.
Billy Napier has even said this, that they evaluated 23 portal quarterbacks before ending up with Mertz. I don't know if that means 22 other guys wouldn't send in their film or what the situation was, but Mertz did get the job, and Florida's going to struggle mightily at that quarterback position this year. Meanwhile, turn all of this that we're saying, and let's look at what's going on with Florida State. Well, Florida State has one of the most...
I don't care about Florida State. We don't play them. So there you have it. Do the Florida Gators have Joe Burrow on their hands, or do they have Graham Mertz? I think it's Graham Mertz. But who knows? He might be the next Tank Murdoch.
This guy's going to be the new Tank Murdoch.
Now, look, if he's the next Tank Murdoch, they're going to be difficult. Now, if he's the next Joe Burrow, we all got problems. But I highly doubt it. All right, folks, just wanted to cover all this Florida news. And it sounds like they're having a struggle down there, and you know how much I hate to hear that. And I know you're probably upset up here in Knoxville and all over the state of Tennessee to hear that they're having a tough time at QB. And the fact there's an FSU guy over there roasting marshmallows on the bonfire doesn't surprise me. They're coming off 2 losing seasons, and that's – look, I'm going to tell you right now, if they have another losing season next year, they go 6-7 or 7-6, that seat's going to get hot. I mean, I don't know. Would you let somebody go after 2 years? Probably not. That's a lot of money, but he'd have to have a heck of a recruiting class to calm everybody down. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover the Vols and the SEC and all that good stuff. And if you've not subscribed, it's right here on the left. Just hit that little button. Just boom, all you got to do. It takes you 1 second. You will not burn a calorie. Just boop. And right over here's my most recent video. Check that one out. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk J.